And I'm going to start
All right.
streaming. Okay. Both are set and you're all set.
All right. Great. Well, welcome everybody. This is a subgroup meeting of the Data and Best Practices work group of the Niskayuna Racial Equity and Justice Task Force. So anything we do with the public has to be kind of recorded and streamed. So which is all right. But what we'll do really today is focus on the map that we started, but we'll focus on feedback loops. I've never done this with groups, but if we do it with groups, the advantages we have more people understanding the linkages. And it's otherwise when you just show the map, people look at it and they see this jumble of lines and say, great, but they don't really get it, you know? So at least a few of us will get it. So what I'll do is, if you'll not just put yourselves on mute.
Oh, not bad.
All right. I don't know why there's an echo. Okay, everybody on mute. Fantastic. All right, so I'll share the presentation. Let's see, present now. The entire screen. All right. All right, so here we are. You can see my screen, right? So, and we'll do the introductions afterwards. So I'll get this over, then everybody else can talk. So this is the, let's see, okay. So like I said, welcome, and we'll work on the map, draw feedback loops, and then reflect on the maps. And then I'm hoping we will share parts of this map, especially the loops are very important. And I'll figure out a way to split it amongst ourselves so we can make it concise. So there's the Jamboard link, and I'll give it again. So, when I started doing systems kind of work, systems thinking, it was just last year. And I just felt, as somebody who's been planning for a lot, it kind of had a smoothness like Tai Chi to it. And then I found this great article on the symbol, the yin yang symbol, and the Taijitsu. And it was a whole article on how system dynamics is linked to it, the S curve, how it changes over time. The yin is to the left, the yang is to the right, they're opposites. And there's a tension, but they stay together. And then there's the circle in the border, which is like the feedback loop, which I thought was interesting. And the part that really interests me about systems dynamics is we hate talk in real life. When I work on planning, we hate talking about trade-offs. We like to know where is it going? How are we going to get the action? But we never often stop to talk about unintended consequences. And it's important to talk about these opposites, because that is, as Carl Jung said, a necessary precondition for real transformation. So I gave you all some articles. It was just optional. But from that article by systems thinker, Daniel Kim, I've used it often whenever I draw this. Just some simple ones I pulled out, that the variable labels must be positive. Like you can say jobs or quality jobs, but not increasing quality jobs. Avoid the verbs, because it makes it confusing when you are trying to show directionality. For every course of action, think if there are unintended consequences. Balancing loops, we'll come to it, are goal seeking. So make the goals explicit, and that I'll guide you through that. When you're talking about something, think about actual versus perceived state. When something is perceived, it takes a little longer to take effect. Again, I'll guide you through that. When we try to make these arrows, when we make the arrows, we may put it as O, which is this causes an opposite. Increasing this decreases that. That would be opposite. Well, something, if you do increases this, increases that, it's considered S. Same. Okay. So odd number of O's is balancing, even numbers of O's is reinforcing. We'll come to that and we'll talk about it. So now, coming back to our last meeting, this is what we had. right? This was a feedback loop. So I am going to go to the Jamboard after this just to give you an idea. On one side, we have a lot of incarceration, then there's housing, and on the left hand corner, bottom corners, there's gentrification, housing, ableism. We started talking about it. Socioeconomic status on the top right hand, a lot of issues with social issues, social capital, as I call it. And actually, that was a big part of our discussion. And there are some things missing. So I'm going to ask you all to go to the Jamboard, and I'm going to stop presenting for now. And I am going to bring the Jamboard up. And don't come back to the presentation, just stay on the Jamboard because we'll focus on there. So I stop presenting. So let me see. Now I will get the Jamboard up. Let's see. All right. Okay, this is my Jamboard, okay? And y'all don't look at the screen because it'll get confusing. You'll be able to see whatever we do on your Jamboard, especially if you're working with one screen rather than two screens, it's going to be confusing. So stay with your Jamboard. Screen versus Jamboard, stay with your Jamboard. So this one, I wanted to start up with why. Why am I focusing on feedback loops? Because really, I've never done that. As a planner, I worked for many years. We never really focused on feedback loops. So that was a new one. So let me ask you, why do you think? I'm going to read out to you. Just tell me if it's mostly true or mostly, you can speak. We're a small group, so it'll be pretty informal. Do you think maybe we're doing feedback loops because it shows potential leverage points to address goals and vision? You can show me a thumbs up. Dustin is only with camera. I don't see, which is fine. But Dustin, you can speak. Uh, what do you think? Is the first one mostly true? If it's mostly true, thumbs up. If it's not, thumbs down. Why are we doing feedback loops? I can see thumbs up for Margaret. Yes, okay, that's true. They make great circular design elements in reports. What about that? No, down, yeah. It does make circular, but there are other great design things you can do. Help understand how change happens. Yeah, probably. We'll come to that. Advice on data or information elements we should be looking for. Yeah. Offer guidance on policies we should be considering and trade-offs. I gave you a hint of that. I love this part of trade-offs. Are they fun to draw? I don't know. I always get a little stressed out doing them because it's new for me still. But after it's done, I say, yeah, that makes sense. So I prefer maybe with more practice, I'll enjoy drawing them. But to be honest, I get a little stressed out. So I'm going to go over here. So really, this is just a generic one, okay? So you have something you put in, the output, you get something that comes out, a reaction or an effect. And a feedback loop is if that same output becomes an input and there may be some kind of intervention, and whether if it positively, if an output, when it becomes an input, increases the input, that's a positive, or they call an S, same. If an output on the right hand side, the green intervention, if it increases the intervention, but it decreases the whatever happens, then it's like a negative. So, all right. So then let's go here. This is what we had drawn, right? On this. So what I will ask us to do is just, let's see. I'm going to draw just basic circles around grouping. We talked about the well-being framework, and I said in the well-being framework there are 4 buckets, right? 4 buckets where we have assets. We talked about human assets, social assets, natural assets, which is like environment, air, water, and we talked about financial or infrastructure, something you build that takes definite money. those kind of assets. So let me give you an example. So I'll just going to group so we kind of have an idea and see what's missing. So for example, beginning our discussion, we started with a lot of this prejudice. Oops, I'm going to change the color. Let's see. So if I choose the pen and I choose a red color, so a
Would
lot
it make
of
sense
this,
to change the stickies to color by those four
no,
categories?
we're not going to spend too much time here.
Okay.
We're going to go, I'm just kind of doing this just to kind of give you an idea of grouping where these come from. So all of these I would call what the social assets, okay? And when we talk about gentrification, housing, that had to do over here, you know, it could be infrastructure, could also be social, right? There was one. Then there was incarceration, equity in hiring. There's another one over here. This healthcare, racial equity, staffing, this is like human social tend to be very close. So I often tend to put them together because they just look closely aligned. Redlining is part of housing, right? So we talked a little bit about housing over here. Ableism, kind of inclusion, again, part of the social kind of issues. And it's not important. This is just in our minds to know what we have and what we don't have. Education, which is a big social issue too. Yeah. And then learning to respect again. So we were very heavily on social, equity in hiring, social economic issues again. What we were missing over here is anything to do with natural assets, environment. We also have to be thinking about how do we get money to do this, financial infrastructure. And we didn't get to that, which is okay. So I am going to go to the next page. Oh, let me see what I have on the next page. Okay. So I'm just going to erase this. Oh. All right. So now what I'll start off with is let's do I tried various ways to do these feedbacks. Let's look at the social issues because that was a big part of our discussion. And people talked about willingness to listen. People were, some of members were hurt when people said leave the country, this putting people on the outside, that they don't belong here. So some of this you can collapse. So let's say, and I'll just start us off with one, okay? So if we go to, say, if we put social as, see, what did I put? What social we want to put blue, green, blue. Let's put blue, yeah? And say belonging. Okay. The disadvantage of working in this is we have only this size of page. So sometimes we may run over, then I'll go to the next page. Okay. So if people want to belong, and so what helps belonging? And what we talked about was meaningful interactions. It can be in person or talking with respect. So if you could collapse those, and I'm just doing this first one. Um, and let's see. So maybe I'm just going to use a black line here. So meaningful interactions, help belonging. I'm trying to think. Oh, sorry. This is, 1 second. I need a sticky. I'll just do the first one and then we can go from there. Okay, so this helps belonging, and we can put this as S. Okay, so If meaningful interactions help belonging, what else helps belonging? So if you have meaningful interactions, what ways do you have? You have dialogue, you may meet in person, right? Let's clarify this a little. Justin, I'm going to ask you because I have a tendency to write. So can you just put a blue one over here, say meaningful dialogue meeting on there? So right here. Yeah, fantastic. All right. And then put an arrow from meaningful dialogue to belonging, and that's S. Okay. Now let's try and make a loop over here. So if people feel that people belong, they are less likely to kind of be disrespectful, right? So over here, put a little one which says disrespect or lack of empathy or something, a little label on the other side of meaningful dialogue across. Yeah. And put it there. Yeah. So belonging, and if you do from belonging to lack of empathy, it's a minus or a opposite, O, right? And then let's complete the loop. The lack of empathy decreases meaningful interactions. And so do an O. Excellent. Okay. So this is our feedback loop for and what I usually do then is sometimes I don't need this because we've clarified this some more. So I erase this. All right. So this is, and this is an S here between meaningful interactions and meaningful dialogue. Okay. So this is one, and according to this, it's S, S, O, O. So this is, according to our systems thinker, this is a reinforcing loop. So because there are two O's and two S's, they cancel them, so it's an R loop. We'll come back and visit it, okay? Because that's what he says you should do. If it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. Okay, now let's look at another one, which is related to either housing, or do you want to look at housing? You choose an issue from the map. Let me go back to this map here. So right now we created a loop here. We'll come back to it and see we've included everything. Which ones do you want to go for next? Do you want to go to jobs or housing? What would you like to do next? Or ableism? Anything?
We got to do them all, right?
Yeah. So I just want y'all to choose one. Which one would you like to go next? Because I'm going to kind of facilitate this one. I won't do it for you.
Housing.
Housing. All right. So with housing, let's put it as affordable quality housing. That's what we want, right? A goal. Justin, maybe a different color. Yeah, okay, pink is good. So if you want affordable quality housing, basically that means according to most demographics, if the cost of your housing is less than 30% of your total income, that's reasonable according to most. I mean, if it's even less, even better, but anything more than 30% becomes a hardship. So is it 30%? But we'll check. I'll clarify this. But just say it's let's say 30% for now, and before the end of this meeting, I'll confirm it. All right. So if you can put another label says housing, quality housing, housing cost less than 30%. That's affordable. Oh, there you got. I've already got it there. Fantastic. All right. So then what happens? That is, if people have decent jobs, they may be able to afford that, right? Or if they have, what are some factors that lead to affordable quality housing?
Well, income is one of them, but discrimination as well figures in
Okay.
here. Not necessarily to quality and affordable, but accessible. Access to quality, affordable housing.
Okay.
Is a
So, okay, so maybe put access to quality, access,
Change
just
the existing.
access.
Yeah. A new one. Gotcha.
Yeah, new label. Okay, and put it down and make an arrow to the housing. And if you have access to housing, it will be, and put it there. So when we have access, and we may change this. So if you have access to housing, what would enable access to housing?
Well, jobs for one, and banks willing to give you a mortgage.
Okay.
Credit.
Rather than just say wealth, say quality jobs. That's well paying, right? And not only well paying, it is quality. It's time, whether you can even get those jobs. Okay, so quality jobs, it means a lot of different things. So that's a positive too. Offers access to housing, credit, yeah. So make an arrow to access to housing, credit, and put that next to the quality of jobs. So you make a whole loop around that too. Put it right next down there, next to it, in line with it, yeah. That too will have access to housing, right? Okay, affordable quality housing. Let's close the loop. Lead is basically builds community wealth. It's a form of wealth building. If you have a stable housing, you may not have a job, but it'll help you become more resilient. So let's put an arrow to community wealth and put it. Okay. Now this is going to go a little crazy, but that's okay. It takes a little bit to tidy up later on, as long as we understand what is. And community wealth. Community wealth is a lot of things. It's social support. It's basically people. You have a group of people supporting you. A social network. It also means you have some wealth to build on. It may mean so if you have credit, it also helps with. It's a part of community support because somehow there are people, banks, or even informal networks who are ready to give you that community wealth. So put it there. Put an arrow to that as well. From credit to community wealth.
Ah.
No, credit. It's credit to community wealth. That's also a form of. And community. So we have to close the arrow, right? But you're right. You're trying to figure out how to close the arrow. So if you have community wealth, let's see, affordable housing, access to housing.
Where does redlining go then?
Right. He was talking about discrimination. And that's what Dustin was talking about. So put redlining as redlining or discriminatory practices, and just in parentheses put redlining, because even though redlining is not legal anymore, prejudice still occurs, right?
Well, redlining still happens too, though.
With neighborhoods. I mean,
But still.
redlining
And
initially was
redlining
a
goes to banking systems. It goes to sale of property. I mean, it
but it's
encompasses.
yeah, but
We
redlining
can
in
use the larger category of discrimination to include that.
Yeah, and the reason I said redlining is because it was a federal policy that was repealed in 1970. But that doesn't mean it doesn't happen, right? That's where I was coming from.
It might have been repealed on a federal level, but it hasn't been repealed in different states.
Okay.
States can still say, sorry, we're still going to do this.
We'll
So-
have to clarify, but I know what you're saying. It's just that whether it's more insidious now, while it was more blatant years ago, you
yes.
know? So that's it. So let's see. So let's figure this out over here. I'm just going to, let's see. Okay, I'm just going to move these around a bit. So community wealth. So quality jobs. So I'm just going to play around with this now. Quality jobs lead to community wealth. If you get credit, it can lead to community wealth. Housing discrimination decreases community wealth. And affordable housing and affordable housing will lead to community wealth. But community wealth. I'm just trying to figure out which way to do with the arrows. And
I'd say
Mhm.
probably community wealth can lead to reduction in housing discrimination, which can increase access. Because if you have a community if you have a community, you can resist discrimination in a way that individuals can't.
Okay, so let's see. So here, because you have social support, you have a social network,
Right.
and you
And
have
I'd say that
influence.
affects access. Less discrimination is a negative impact on access. Sorry.
Okay,
Housing discrimination is a negative impact on access, is what I was saying. And I think that might complete the cycle then, because access feeds into quality affordable housing.
okay. So I've got this here, but affordable housing. Would affordable housing decrease? No, it wouldn't. It's community wealth that would decrease housing discrimination, right?
Right.
So let's see. So if I this would build community wealth. Community wealth would decrease. Okay. Okay, that's a circle, right? And quality jobs we put housing there. So I'm going to move this over here, okay? Because quality jobs can have its own little cycle here. And credit, I'm going to move it out here. So, okay, so then we get community wealth would give you more access to credit. And quality jobs would lead to, so S. All right, so this is one loop. We'll come back to what's a feedback, we'll come back to the loops again. So I'm going to go to the next page. We have credit and quality over there hanging there. Let's go to jobs now on this one. Okay, so quality jobs. All right. Okay, could you put quality jobs? I'm just not there. Okay, if you could put Dustin one that says quality jobs. Excellent. Okay, so what would lead to quality jobs? For all, maybe put quality jobs for all, because we do have quality jobs, it's just not for everyone.
Education.
Education. All right. Education slash training, if you could put that.
Yeah.
And put a same arrow to quality jobs for all. The same thing would be with like with what we talked about equity practices. I mean, very often we find, and this is because I work with community wealth building, that people do employ people of color at entry-level jobs. The issue is having that promotion opportunity, because entry-level jobs pay a certain amount, but then get to the quality job, you need that equal opportunity, which sometimes is just not there.
Well, you also need equal opportunity to the education and training to be
Right.
qualified to get their promotion.
Right. So,
And that's often not available either.
right. So we could put,
Do we mean equal or equitable there?
equitable. Yeah.
That's good semantic catch.
Yeah. So, okay. So just put equitable opportunities. And we're talking about jobs and education and training. Let's put that. And then put another one which says opportunities for promotion. And we'll figure out where. Let's do the arrows later, but just let's think of opportunities for promotion. What about, very often, social networks? You know, if you have the right social network, you can get with a lot of things. So put social network as another label. Because very often, when you're at a certain level, you know a certain group of people, and you all know the same people. But to really get to the next step, you have to go outside your little inner circle sometimes, because they have the contacts. You know, it's very often the second or third layer, which is tough because it's very often people you don't know well.
The phrase I've often heard used is, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah, social network. It's a book called Village Effect, where she says, you know, people at the lower rungs are very good at networking. They actually tap out their inner circle very well, childcare, whatever. It's then, but your inner circle only knows each other, right? And to get further, you have to go beyond your inner circle. And that's a tough one because you don't know them well enough. So social network. So, all right, anyway. So let's see if we can do over here. So quality jobs for all will actually, if you had people had jobs, they actually build a social network. So that helps. So, you know, employment is a form of social networking. So if you could put that there, okay. And social networking offers, again, is positive for opportunities for promotion. So both, put both side by side. I mean, social networks are key. I mean, they help with both of them. So one arrow there and the same arrow from social networks to equitable job opportunities. Oh, and if you had, and then both, so this is really a very strong reinforcing loop. We have to think about but again, opportunities for promotion will give you education and training, equitable, so close the loop over here for both of them. But then let's think about negative, things that stop people from getting this. So,
There's like unconscious and conscious biases.
so over here, let me close this loop here. This is, okay.
I don't
But-
really see that last link from opportunities and from both opportunities to education training.
When we're talking about if you have opportunities and everything is in the positive, are you thinking about access? Is that why you're not seeing it?
I'm just not sure how opportunities for promotion lead to education.
And training.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you have a social network, this is the way I was thinking. You hear about opportunities for promotion. And to get that promotion, again, because of the social network, you will hear about opportunity. That's where I was coming from. So here it's basically positive. You hear about promotion, and one way you may hear about the training, or
So it sounds like the social network is leading to the education and training.
Yeah, excuse me 1 second. Could I add something? Because companies also, they train from within. So once you have those entry level jobs, and most large corporations, they train from within. They have their own training force, so they move people up and laterally, throughout the company that way.
they move some people up, right?
Yeah, well, the thing is, it depends, especially with very large organizations, right? They train you, and you can travel throughout the company. Like I work for AT&T. I retired from AT&T, and that's exactly how we did it. We trained. Well, you trained all the time, but if you saw a position that you wanted to move into, you can go. Actually, they would pay you to go take college courses also.
Yeah, but that's not often. That doesn't happen.
Not anymore.
Sorry. Can somebody? Yeah, I was just thinking that happens maybe in large companies, but in a lot of places, the management level is not so open. It's not even advertised.
Mm-hmm.
It's word of mouth, who you know, and you don't even. It's not so transparent. So large companies maybe have some policies, but mid-sized companies, even at the state, I work for the state. The
Mhm.
management positions are all political positions. They're not open. There's no way you can even apply for it.
I think
Oh, strange.
this may vary by organization, but there's an inclusiveness, an employment inclusiveness thing there where companies that are sort of doing it right and quality jobs are going to include some kind of internal training, whether that's for cross promotion or just for, for continuing education and trying to retain people and give them that as a benefit.
Yeah.
And I think that's why AT&T did it, right? It wasn't out of the kindness of their heart.
No, you first of all, a lot of it was the way. Well, I was in data communications, and I mean, with the rollout of all the new technology, you had to be constantly trained. But also over the lifetime, we're saying of 30 years, also the means of the jobs changed. You see, it's like industrialization. Okay, you may have one job, a person did one job, and they did everything. But then over the time, it's broken out and broken out. And as a matter of fact, Hudson Valley participates in things like community colleges. they participate. As these jobs break up into different, into different modules, they get trained through community. You'll see it pop up in Hudson Valley or one of the community colleges for this course, a certification. You don't no longer need an associate's. You see, and they have all these jobs, but actually they were actually done at one time by one, that was one position. So,
I also think positions are not held as long as they used to be. People switch companies so quickly now. I mean, if you stay at a company for 5 years, you've been there forever. Very few people last 30 years anymore at the same company.
it's not happening. That was predicted. But I remember when I was in college back in 76, and that was predicted back then, that they said that don't think about these jobs where you retire after 40 years. I mean, you still have it like in the state and, as such, but especially with telecommunications or any kind of communications nowadays and data, where the money is moving. The money's not staying in that place. Yeah.
So the question is, does every company act like AT&T, giving advertising their job opportunities, training people, even internally, and getting them to move up? That's the question. If it is no, then is that uniform across the United States or across New York or even just in the capital region?
Those are international companies. So, I mean, it's not a thing where you're looking locally. Okay, but they have periods because, as a matter of fact, when Judge Green broke up the Bell system, because AT&T, New York Telephone, and all the Bell companies used to be one big monopoly. Now you'll have those bursts where they break up, and those are the times when you can get into management, because now they're trying to move and shove people into different offices. But you'll see that with everywhere.
Okay, let's put the large companies a little aside for a minute. Let's look just at the school district, just our school district. Okay.
I also think this might be socioeconomically based. When we're in a recession, I don't think as much training and internal promotion happens as much as the layoffs happen and people are just downsizing. When we're in more of an economic boom, then you'll see more of that expansion of your base, expansion of who you have in certain companies. I think it almost depends on market flow as to what companies are going to do for promotions, education, all of that. If they have the money to do it, they'll do it. If they don't, they're not doing anything.
Okay. But just say, why is it then our schools, Niskayuna schools just released some equity strategy plan where they have fewer people of color among the staff. They didn't differentiate it by seniority, but administrators, teachers. I would be curious to see that. Informally, I hear that promotions within something like a school district are by whom you know. And I don't know if that is true or not.
My husband works for the school district. Definitely.
Sometimes when you have people, I know as far as people of color, like it depends too, as far as even if you go by seniority, it's like the people, they're hired last. So even if it's layoffs and things like that, they're the first to go. Or they're the last to be considered for a moving, because by the time people start hiring people of color, you've already had all these people that are greened in. I mean, they're already ready to be promoted. So it's it's just a thing with affirmative action and how slow things are rolling out. I mean,
and it depends on unions too.
And union, yes.
So let's put seniority, unions as two separate ones, and let's see if we can. We got a lot of factors here. Okay, because I've been looking at the debate going on in the press about, what does they call it? this whole cultural debate about teaching history. I forget what it's called. I put it in the thing. Anyway,
Wait, you mean critical race theory?
yes, critical race theory.
Right.
I was reading about the history of that. And basically, one of the cases, the lady Crenshaw, Dr. Crenshaw, who came up with
yes.
that story,
Francis.
one of the first cases she fought, and I don't know if she won it, is these women who sued because they were laid off because they didn't have enough seniority. They were never promoted, you know? And it was always women, not the men. It's the women who were not promoted. And that was one of the cases, even though they were qualified, they were the first to get laid off, even though they had all the experience and the qualifications. And
But
why?
then it's based on it's based on systems thinking.
Right. No, I do.
That
I do know.
it's a critical systems thinking.
Yes. No, I was very interested in what that was. No, yeah, right. So let's finish this one.
Let's go.
647. Oh gosh. So education and training, jobs for all. So Dustin, let's see if any of these help. So social network. So let's see, equitable. So social network will give you equitable job opportunities. Is that something you agree or not? But you're not sure about education and training. So how do we put this? Let's just move these over here. We'll come back to these arrows again. I mean, it's confusing. Okay, quality jobs for all. Education and training, we said definitely help.
I
Okay.
think the
Your
education
social
and
network.
training needs to be just education, because it seems to me the equitable job educational opportunities come from, that can be social networked, but your training may be going to a good high school, going to a college that is going to give you a lot of education that you wouldn't get if you didn't go, or if you went to a good trade school or whatever. That's, to me, is the basis, from kindergarten up. Did you get a good education? And then that contributes to quality jobs for all.
But
and
a
when
lot
you're
of
on the job, social networking can give you more opportunities to move up in your job and get more educational opportunities through your job.
there are
That's what happened to me.
there are a lot of educated people who don't get quality jobs, right? They don't have the right connections.
Right.
So education by itself is not enough. I mean, that's the issue we're facing, is that people are qualified, but they just cannot break through.
Well, and I also think it depends on your social network.
Right.
There are many people that can't get into the right social network. I mean, I look at deaf people all the time, and they just aren't allowed into the club. I mean, they can meet as many people within the structure in the company as they want, but if they're not allowed into the network, if they don't know how to work their system, then there's no benefit to them.
So maybe that's a loop by itself. Social network, quality jobs get you social networks. Social networks in turn will get you quality jobs. Opportunities for promotion also can be helped with social networks, right? And this can also,
I think it goes to education and training too.
Social networks can help with education and training too. Is that what you're saying, Sabrina?
No, opportunities for promotion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know how many places I've been where they've said, "Oh, nice guy," but they don't have the on paper, they don't meet the qualifications. Or complete opposite. They meet all the qualifications they need, but not so much.
So let's see. So opportunities for promotion. Social networks get you opportunities for promotion. And that can lead to do we agree that can lead to, let's do this one at a time. That can lead to also quality jobs. Social networks will also get you training and education. Whoops. Put this here. And training and education can lead to quality jobs. Oh God. Okay,
And
that's
Sabrina,
S
were you
here.
suggesting that education can lead to more opportunities for promotion?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
A lot of people are just, if you have your bachelor's, you need to have a master's. I mean, majority, especially in Niskuna, majority of those GE Capital jobs, master's only.
Okay, so we have over here opportunities for promotion. Okay, we don't have a loop here though. We'll have to work on this loop. Okay, we'll work on this. We are running out of time. So unions can actually, oops, sorry.
I think they're the gatekeepers to the social network at times. They're the gatekeepers to all of it, I think, depending on your contract and depending on what agreements you have as to whether or not you get the education, you get the promotion, you get the seniority.
And this is for all. It's just not for a few. So unions can advocate for that, you're saying. And
they can.
Yeah. Okay.
They can.
Equitable job opportunities. I think it's the same over here. Quality jobs for all, equitable job opportunities is the same. So I'm going to, whoops, put this one over here. It's kind of, we can fold this together. Seniority. Seniority, quality jobs can lead to, where does seniority fit in here?
Unions, seniority, you make out well in unions. And you get all the benefits, you get preference for everything.
And opportunities for promotion.
That's right. More seniority.
Yeah.
But that may actually decrease quality jobs for all because people don't leave.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I would agree.
Yeah, unions are sort of ambiguous too, because they can also be exclusionary to a social network. Where if you don't have union membership, then you can't enter the social network.
That's why
I wonder if seniority and unions. Go ahead.
Yeah. They can say who can come or go.
But when you're looking for equitable, especially ones who are marginalized, unions are definitely, are the ones that have historically got them benefits. We've got our weekends because of unions,
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll come back to this. This is quite a lot. So listen, it's 6:54. So we have, if I go back, so we have housing, we have housing. What do we have? Yeah, we had housing, we had jobs, we had education. I said we were missing out on natural assets, and Niskayuna has a lot. You think about the bike path, and how do we kind of work this through, or how do we not ignore it? And this is something to think about. We don't have to do everything right now. We can fill this in later. The parts that I was thinking was like green jobs, green training. We could put, that could be one. The other is green space. There are some parts of Niska, like old Niskayuna. I think if all of you, why am I getting an echo? Okay. I'm not getting an echo now. So old Niskayuna, for example, and ones near the town hall have easy access to the bike path. Maybe even some in the Birchwood area can get to there. So, but you need access, no? Like I have a friend who lives off Route 7, but on the left-hand side, I don't know what neighborhood.
Right, but if you're in a wheelchair, you can't get there.
You're right. So you need what I was thinking is, say, so one thing I was thinking of is, I'm going to go on to a next page over here, okay? Oh, man, public safety, we didn't get there yet. So I'm just going to clear this frame. So for example, if I was to do, let's see, if I do green space, okay? There were two things I was thinking we could do. Green space. Okay, and like you said, if you cannot, if you had complete streets, and what complete streets is a policy where everybody will have access. You have bicyclists, wheelchairs, cars, everybody has access, and we have a complete streets committee at the town. So if we, Dustin, could you write complete streets? I'm very slow at this. So complete streets, and if you had complete streets, you would have access to green space, access to green, wherever you want to get. And then you put access, another one that says access, access to green space, complete streets below that. Oh no, so let's see, access to green space, complete streets would give you access to green space. And if you had, like, if you only thought about cars using streets, which is what happens a lot of Niskayuna, for example, the Rosendale side is all cars. There's no walking area. Then that actually decreases access. So, so if you had access, so I'm trying to think. So access to, okay, here.
It also decreases safety.
Which is cars only kind of roadways.
When it's not a complete street, yeah.
Yeah. So put another label that says cars only streets or something. We'll figure out what the correct term for that is. Cars only streets, yeah.
Vehicle majority.
Okay. So yeah, so if we go here, so and here we can change this to enjoy or okay, and you got two of them here. Okay, enjoy or use. I'm going to change that one. Yeah. So, okay, so if you want to enjoy or use green space, you need to have access to it. And I may shorten this. I may just say green space. Okay, and if you had complete streets, it would help you, right? But if you want to enjoy green space, let's see. See, that's why I said I don't like doing feedback loops. I'm not very good at it, and it always takes me longer. So if you had vehicle majority, it kind of complete streets. This decreases.
I was so kidding about that.
It decreases if you have it. Basically, you have less of green streets. And then what do I do to complete? Enjoy or use green space. Is there any connection here?
It seems like we're forcing a cycle where there might not be one here.
Right, there is no cycle. We'll figure out a cycle. If you enjoy a green space, this actually leads to this
Well,
is
if
what
you
you call
enjoy
oops.
it, you would have less vehicle majority, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we will. Yeah, let's think of it. It like I said, it's hard to do this at once. But what if you enjoy and have enjoyment of green space? It leads to well-being. So I'm just going to put well-being over here of of everybody, right?
Well, doesn't that lead to community wealth?
It is. It's part of community wealth. This green space is part of community wealth. So it also is, say, it's part of community wealth.
So it's an echo of
Mhm.
community wealth.
Yeah, we're going to connect all of these together. I've just put them on different pages, but we'll connect them. If you enjoy this, you are supposed you'll get advocacy for having less vehicle majority streets, won't you? People will want more streets. Actually, for a while there, when they were thinking of closing schools, they're thinking of closing VA. The biggest advocates were people from that area. They said these are walkable streets, while Rosendale and Iroquois, you cannot walk. So that was like the loudest voice out there. And actually, that's why that area is very valuable because it's walkable. Walkable streets increase in value because it's just real estate. It's needed. It kind of adds value to the houses.
Well, and then we're going back to building community wealth.
Right. Yeah. So, all right. So this is what I'm going to do. It's 7:03 because I do want all of us to present. So what I will do, the one more thing I would love to do is one more loop, if I can, is uh, about finance and infrastructure. Because if we are to do some of this, we need to get money, right? So if we can get, so if you want to get finance, if you can put finance, Dustin, as one. Actually, let's go to the next one. Just put finance over here. We can
Now,
get
when
yeah,
you're talking about get finance, what are we talking about here?
money, funds. Let's say
Do
funds
what?
to
What's our
build for racial equity and justice. We are going to do if we want to do transformative work. How are we going to fund it? Right?
so anti-redlining?
Yeah, any transformative work. Say we want to do education and get people together. We want to offer incentives for affordable housing. How are we going to get funds, right? Funding for, say, community wealth building, because social networks, green space, quality jobs. So instead of advocacy, say funding for community wealth building. All of those. Okay, so sorry. So then there are several ways you can get us. One is if you can put taxes fees as one.
But aren't we taxed enough in Niskayuna?
So the negative part with that is it's politically unpopular. Our politicians won't like it, but it is a revenue source, right? And
And are we looking at business revenue taxes or personal?
we haven't. That's the policy part. We'll have to look at what works in other communities. The other way you can get it is through what I call foundations. CDC has a foundation, WHO has a foundation, where you basically, and we have an Niskayuna Community Foundation. Could we do
Gates
some,
Foundation?
yeah. So doing some kind of foundation where you basically get money for a purpose and you act like a foundation, you know? Uh, the other thing you could do is through procurement. How you procure. One of the big things a lot of governments or private organizations can do is who they buy services from, because they have to buy something. They have to buy their supplies. So who they buy from can help. So those are the three areas. So let's,
Excuse me, Preeti, let me ask you. When we were doing jobs,
mhm.
I was wondering why we never included businesses, because there's some communities. I mean, they have businesses, and I mean, jobs is fine, but businesses, that's wealth building. You
Yeah,
see, and it's generational wealth building, especially if you. I mean, that's just more of what we were thinking about as far as funding. Because like you said, when you just said it just now, okay, if we have a situation where we need more taxes and more funding, businesses are the way to go.
yeah. Actually, you need a partnership, right? You need a public-private nonprofit partnership. It's not one group doesn't have all the answers.
Yeah.
Governments are powerful. So really, we're looking for partnerships. So
Mhm.
over here, let me just bring this over here. If you could put taxes to politics and just put a negative, say unpopular or political support, just put in the politics to political support and put negative or O, that's a negative. And taxes, procurement, and foundations, charitable, all three can lead to, um, are all can help with the funding. For example, Evanston in Illinois is taxing the marijuana, and that is being used for racial equity. I don't know if the city of Charlotte is doing it, but they're doing a fantastic job,
Springfield
whatever.
is too. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Massachusetts.
there are different ways. Procurement, they can all help with community funding. Um, and community funding, okay, so we'll stop here. So what I'll do is I will join all this up based on what I've seen, right? Based on the original one over here. And I'll work with each of you to understand a loop, okay? And I'll refine it or something. So if I may ask, and if you're not comfortable, if you're not comfortable, fine, but we'll get this. I'll make this neater. Uh, if y'all could just keep thinking of a loop, like say the social support part of it, that one we spent is probably is the most clear. If somebody could talk to the social support one, if somebody could talk to housing, if somebody can talk about jobs, green space, and this one still needs work. So don't talk about this yet till I've done it. But if y'all would be open to kind of explain, I'll put it all together. I'll get it to you, like say within 2 days, if not by tomorrow, that by the after. And see if the loops make sense based on what we said. I'll try and even summarize our discussion and put them so they're part of this. We've used this bigger picture of what people are saying. So maybe what I can do is wait. I'll I'll put this together, look at it, and then see if you are open to explaining what loops we found. But first, let me do it, because without seeing it, it's hard for you to say yes or no, right? So why don't I work on it? There are 5 of you. If you can each choose one, if not, it's also fine. All right. Yeah, go ahead, Sabrina. You're
My
gonna say.
brain doesn't work like this.
I know.
So I'm really struggling to find a hook for me to get it. I
Okay.
get it in a larger global sense of what a feedback loop is. Like I understand that point of it, but how we're going to apply this to develop other things from it. That's
Okay.
where I'm struggling.
Yeah, and the reason you're struggling is because we've worked on it in pieces. So give me a
I
chance to
don't
put it.
think
Yeah,
I don't think
Margaret?
it's just, I think I kind of agree with Sabrina. I can see the big picture, and I could even see things like if we were talking about generally for the population of Niskuna, the green space issue, the safe streets, that makes sense for the Green Street Committee. But for this committee, what I'm seeing is I'm trying to tie this into racial inequity in our community.
Okay.
And I see that as more like what goes on in school with kids and people driving down Route 7 or kids walking home or parents out jogging, being stopped and questioned about what they're doing in this neighborhood and that those kind of questions. I guess I'm not the housing. I can see the housing at certain levels. But I'm struggling with some of the rest of these in terms of like, it's like
I
for
hear you,
me,
Margaret.
with the green space, the inequity is that like we don't have sidewalks in my area except some of the ones on the Apple Orchard streets. Nobody else, and walking on Route 7 is absolutely horrendous if you're with somebody and you want to have a conversation.
Well, even try navigating it in a wheelchair. It's like close to impossible. I mean,
Impossible.
blind. Yeah, good luck.
Yeah,
And
Margaret.
I always say where I live in Niskayuna, I'm 4 miles from everything. If I want to go
Okay.
to the drugstore, I have to drive 4 miles. If I want to go to get something at a store, I got to drive 4 miles. School was 4 miles when the kids were at the high school, and it's 8 miles to the community center.
Okay, this
So-
is what I'll do. I'll put this together. It's hard to see because we have kind of, it's hard. And I will tell you, Sabrina, this is not the way I work too. But I find this really, and especially looking at the trade-offs, very helpful. And for me, the social part of it really brought it out to me. But any case, let me put it together. I think then it'll get easier. I do understand, Margaret, you're saying you don't see, because we didn't even talk about the green space, right? So we don't see it. I've just forced the finance and the green spaces on us. So my question to you is, how many in our conservation and tree council or whatever are people of color? You know, we don't know a lot of the stories because they're not even on there. So it's part of it is we don't know a lot of this. So let me put this together and I will give you some choices. Feel free to say, I don't know what you're talking about. I can't do this. But I will work with you. If you say I'm open to presenting, I'll put it down also. I'll summarize it. I'll show you what the connections are, but see if you're open to it and see if that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, that's fine. But it'll make sense. This is the first time you've heard of it. I've been struggling with this for a year and a half, and I still struggle with it. So you can see it's a struggle.
I'm hearing it. It's not how my brain works, so it's not how I process information in this kind of a feedback visual format. My brain works in a different way. And I'm totally open to trying to figure this out. I'm just not sure where we're taking it from here.
Yeah, no, I can demonstrate better, but let me write it down because I'm only talking and it's 7:14 and I hate to keep you all for too longer. And Rita, thank you for she's agreed to, she did a homework. I was very impressed, Rita. I just said this optional homework and I forgot about it, about that police article that Margaret had sent, and I was doing the iceberg and Rita actually wrote and had notes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what we're going to work on the next one. We're going to start there, but before that we'll show them what we've done with the map and then go into it. So Rita, we'll have a meeting. So hey Liz, so you can so we'll be able to present it in a short manner because I want to kind of get people thinking more about this map in terms of the iceberg rather than that police article. But I want to give the police article as an example. Look, because now I'm beginning to even think like that. Systems thinking is not intuitive. Sabrina, you're not the only one. Most people on this call, including myself, don't think this way. And it is not intuitive. That's what makes it hard. But as you begin to look at it, you get it. But it's never easy. Even with the experts who have done it for years, they say it's never easy. Part of it is because it's not predictable. You know, the patterns keep changing and you have to kind of be on your toes. And that's why it's hard. So anyway, so give me a chance to write this out. I will redraw all these circles against the map we've done. And I'll give you some choices. And if any of you say yes to that, I'll have a one-on-one meeting with you all to prepare you. It will not take long. But like I said, I'll do the writing. And Rita, we definitely will have a one-on-one meeting because you're going to help with that example. And yeah, it's 7:15. So
Can
we
I
will-
tell you, Pretty?
Yeah.
Do you want me, because that one, I'll make it really quick. The police article is very factual. I mean, it's just a lot of data in there. So it's just a matter of just putting them together as far as the models, the different
Yeah.
models, the background. Yeah, that's not really
but
that technical.
But I just want you to do it in 5 minutes. That's what's going to make it hard.
Yes.
You want to have a lot of time to do it because I want to spend people to spend at least 20 minutes on the iceberg, and we will have after looking at our map, and we should not have more than 15 minutes explaining this. So each of you will have 5 minutes. So talking about a loop. So it's not going to be long, 5 minutes or less. We'll figure it out. So at the next meeting, we'll talk about our loops. We'll look at the loops and and come up with an iceberg model for us. And then we'll use this to look at what data are important for us, whether we have it or not, because some we will have, most we will not, and what data this is showing, and what kind of, we will not have talk so much about policies, more about data, but it will show up the policies too. But it's just that we cannot do all things at once. So we will leave the policies for another discussion. Though people love talking about doing things, we will do the data first because we have to set our goals and our targets and everything. All right. So yeah, so within the next 2 days, I will, and so next week, maybe if some of you say yes, I'll have set up some one-on-one meetings in the evenings. All right. It won't be long because most of it will be written out. And if you'll see something in this loop that doesn't make sense, would seem forced, bring it up because that's what I'm looking for, a critical eye, and for you all to say that. But thank you all. This, like I said, this is the first time somebody's actually sat with me and done this. So thank you very much. So we'll talk again. Thanks. Bye.
When's our next meeting?
Our next meeting is it, let's see.
The 15th, I believe.
The 15th, yeah. 6 to 7:30. All right. Thank you. Have a lovely evening. Bye.